people who contracted serious illnesses as a result of a contaminated blood products have been giving evidence in a public inquiry into the scandal. About 5,000 people with haemophilia and other bleeding disorders are believed to have been infected over a 20-year period. Sophie Hutchinson reports.
This is a hugely significant day for the victims of this scandal and their loved ones. Some have waited almost 30 years or more for a public inquiry to come. It is their first chance to tell their stories, give their accounts and have them put on official record of just how much they have suffered. And their evidence is, as the chair, Sir Brian Langstaff, said today, harrowing and incredibly moving. He also described some of the accounts as chilling. It's the start of what's expected to be 11 weeks of evidence between now and October. Each day we'll see around 3 witnesses give their testimonies. And today we've already heard from 2 witnesses about the distress caused by being infected, about doctors telling them to keep their infections a secret, being told they only had a year left to live, about the suffering of the symptoms of hepatitis and HIV. This is hard evidence to hear, but so much harder for those caught up in what's believed to be the worst scandal in NHS history for treatment.
Well, Mark Ward from Peacehaven, who contracted a number of viruses, including HIV and hepatitis B and C, and is secretary of Tainted Blood, a national pressure group which represents people infected through blood transfusions, has been at today's inquiry and joins us live. Mark, thank you so much for joining us on the programme.
Hello, Sarah.
What does it feel to be personally affected by something that is described as being such a scandal?
It's at times it's been frightening, but today I can only say that I felt very emotional, but a great sense of pride that we've finally achieved what we set out for, and that's on our path to justice.
Just briefly tell us your story, how you came to be infected.
Okay, well, I was born with severe haemophilia, which is a bleeding disorder, as you said in the beginning, and the treatment for that is they use blood and make a product from it. The clotting factor agent, factor VIII, they take from the blood, they make it into products, but it takes about 10,000 donations to they put it all in big vats and then they make the treatment from there. So if one is infected, every single bottle is then infected. So that's what happened. I was given the treatment that had HIV, multiple hepatitis viruses and other pathogens in.
And of course you were diagnosed with HIV at a time when there was a lot of prejudice. So not only did you have to cope with the health implications, but also the way that people treated you as a consequence.
Yes, the stigma and the fear back in the 1980s was dreadful. The stigma now is actually what causes more harm because of the psychological side of it. And thankfully, the world has moved on a lot, but there is still an undertone and the stigma does still exist. So I think that we've got a long way to go with education and changing people's opinions, but we are slowly getting there.
An incredible number of people affected by this, and as someone so heavily involved in supporting those who were affected, you must have seen a lot of those people die during this period.
Yes, that's been the hardest thing, that you keep making promises to your friends that we're not going to give up, and then when you lose them, and one by one, and every time a friend is lost, it takes another step closer to you, so you're constantly reminded of your own mortality. And then the thought that recently has been crossing my mind is that at some point there has to be only one left. Of all the victims, if there's only one, and I know it sounds awful to people listening, but I really don't want that last one to be me, to have to watch all my friends die. And hopefully when the time comes, it will be in peace because we've got the justice we've been asking for.
And that's what this is about, isn't it? It's the sense of the recognition, the justice. It's not about compensation.
No, it's never been about money for me, because if you think that as a child you're told that you're going to be dead in possibly a year, every single day you can't plan for a life that you're not meant to have. You sort of stumble through it, and you then can't replace the things that you've been denied or had taken away. I mean, young men who wanted to get married and have families, they now possibly have got married, but their chance of having families was destroyed. So you can never put a monetary value onto that. So compensation is the only way that the government can show recognition of what's been done, but actually money won't uninfect me, money won't save my life, money isn't going to give me another 10 years of life.
Mark, it's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme this evening. The time now coming up to 13 minutes past 5 o'clock.